What's up guys, it's your boy Goblins, and today we're talking about some Dark Souls 3 stuff. So as you guys may or may not know, Dark Souls 3 came out with a new update / patch. We are now in application version 1.05, regulation version 1.08. Now just to kind of remind you guys what that all means is that application updates are like actual physical updates to the game. They adjust things like cast times, swing speeds, hand-to-hand stamina costs, actual bugs in game such as like fog walls that aren't working, white NPC phantoms that go completely invincible, enemy NPC placement, stuff like that. Whereas regulation updates update the actual number side of things. So casting costs, stamina costs, overall base AR for weapons, AR meaning attack rating, covenant summoning numbers, and so on and so forth. Now, it would seem that FromSoft has covered a lot of stuff in this patch, so this might be a little bit of a long video, so I apologize in advance. So just take some time to listen in to what's changed for this patch / update, and get a good idea of what you can do within this new regulation and new application version. Before we start, I'd like to give a big shout out to Row Parkour on Reddit, who created a mega thread that got stickied in the Dark Souls 3 Reddit, which delivered a lot of good information. And beyond Row Parkour, I'd like to thank everyone within that Reddit that actually contributed to giving better details on the patch itself, as well as allowing me to test some other things out that have been speculated and whatnot. There's also a couple other sources past my own testing that I am also referring to as well. A lot of people on the wiki have been testing things within the last few days as well, which is really helpful. So there's a couple sources involved. I'd like to give once again a big shout out to all those guys as well. So with things such as this mega thread, I'd like to think that I am spreading the message from this mega thread on Reddit beyond Reddit and to everyone else, for example on YouTube and whatnot. Just because not everyone is on Reddit. Not everyone pays attention to the Dark Souls 3 Reddit. So it's good to make videos like this where I can help relay some of that information to you guys. Now this update and regulation version update have both been out for, I'm probably going to say about a day or so at this point. Right now, as I'm recording this, it's Saturday, the day after the patch actually officially dropped in game. So that being said, there might be a couple things that I might miss in this, and if you guys notice anything as well, please drop it in the comments. Let's discuss and let's see what else we maybe have missed with these patch notes, but otherwise this is everything that's been found so far. Now, approximately 5 days before the actual patch rolled out for both app version and regulation version, Kimmundi stated the full patch notes in a Reddit post prior to the update rolling out. Now that's great and all, but unfortunately with FromSoft, where a lot of the times their patch notes can be very vague. They don't give the fullest detail of exactly what that patch did, leaving the community to go find all the finer details themselves. And these patch notes read, a freezing error has been fixed in the Archdragon Peak when jumping into the fog after ringing the bell, where you'd go fight Nameless King, and some people report they were either falling through the fog or not able to progress beyond the fog to fight Nameless King. The Ringfinger Leonhard quest will start properly after the removal of the restriction on the maximum number of Pale Tongues that can be offered to Azaria, Mother of Rebirth. Now, I haven't had this glitch actually happen to me, so I'm a little bit unsure of what actually happens here, but I'm going to assume what might have happened is if you offered a certain amount of Pale Tongues to Azaria, it denied the ability to start Leonhard's quest at all due to some sort of glitch having to do with the amount of Pale Tongues offered to her. Now, once again, I've never had that glitch happen to myself, and reading some notes on that, I can't find anything of anyone actually experiencing that whatsoever. But if it's something that's been patched, I can only assume that it's something that's happened to someone at some point in time. The next one is trophies will now unlock correctly even if the required item is sent directly to the storage. So I'm going to assume with this one, let's say for example you just got the Dark Moon Blade Miracle, which is the Dark Moon Blade, and for whatever reason it doesn't go into your inventory because somehow your inventory is full, which is actually a thing. Someone had confirmed that's a thing. I think it was some guy in New Game Plus 7 confirmed that your inventory can actually get full, and it being sent of course to the storage box, which would in turn not activate the achievement / trophy for you. So that's fixed now. You don't have to worry about that ever happening to you. Now the next one's funny because it also reads funny because it's like they don't really want to tell you what it used to do or how to do it. But fixed a skill being changed based on a right hand weapon when equipping a white hair talisman on the left hand while holding the Sacred Flame with both hands. So if you guys don't already know, you used to be able to equip, for example, a Thrall Axe on your left hand, have Sacred Flame active, and then have the White Hair Talisman in your right hand. And then when you two-hand the White Hair Talisman and use Sacred Flame, it dealt like thousands of damage, and a lot of people would actually use it in like cheese builds online and whatnot. And it was a notorious glitch. You could run up to anything and use this Sacred Flame glitch and pretty much get the auto kill just for the thousands of damage that was dealt. Well, now that's fixed. That's no longer a thing, which is once again super awesome, and I'm very grateful for that. If you have ever gotten hit by that in PvP, it's the worst. It's the fucking worst thing ever. And then they like teabag you, and that's even worse to add to it. So That's fixed now. That's awesome. The horse hoof ring, which increases stamina drains of attack, will no longer affect other attacks besides its initial effects on kicks. I'm assuming there was also some sort of glitch where you could manipulate the horse hoof ring to actually deal better damage. So it's nice to know that they fixed that glitch on the horse hoof ring, because using it beyond your initial kicks did actually affect stamina drain on attacks. And the next one reads, it will no longer be possible to equip a helm when using wax pool after using the dragon headstone. So the purpose, of course, of doing that is to not get cursed at all in the Grand Archives by having the wax head, but then being able to re-equip a helmet on top of the wax head while the effect was still active, if that makes sense. That, or some people really didn't like the aesthetic of the wax pool head and really felt the need to glitch it out, apparently. Now, while we're talking aesthetic glitches, you can also no longer show your naked butt with the squat plus Jailer's Robe combo. Okay, so that shit's funny. There's this video of this guy invading, and there's just a bunch of dudes praising the butt in a wax pool. And they keep like dipping their heads into it, and it's actually a really funny PvP video. But you can't do that anymore. It's not as funny as it used to be. And I could see why they made it so you couldn't do it, so that's good. They also fixed the HP drain damage of Symbol of Avarice when resting near bonfire. So some of you have probably already noticed when you're wearing the symbol and you go near a bonfire, sometimes you take damage. Even though it was very light damage, it was still like weird damage, but that's fixed now. They fixed a spell animation and effect not syncing up when using the magic repetitively. I'm not too sure what that means. I'm just assuming it has to do with an audio visual sync up for some sort of spell that is not described in that patch note. They also fixed when summoning the White Phantom NPC under a certain circumstance, the character's collision will properly function, nullifying all enemy attacks. So a good example of this glitch is when Lobos was running his cheese run. He summoned in the Swordmaster for the Vort fight. I believe got the Swordmaster to die in the Vort fight, and then quit out of the game or homeward boned back to the bonfire. Came back to Vort, summoned Swordmaster again, and then all of a sudden, the Swordmaster couldn't take any damage. Or he did, but it was very minimal damage. What would happen is that the hitbox would get completely broken whenever you activated that glitch by doing the sequence that he did. So they fixed that now so that white summon NPCs aren't completely invulnerable to things. Sorry Lobos, no more cheese runs on that one. The next one reads, fixed issue where skills could be performed even when a certain amount of FP was not available. So prior to the patch, you could use weapon skills even if you didn't have the full amount of FP available. Meaning you could have almost no FP left over, but whatever weapon skill you're performing would still activate in full force. Now the amount of FP you use to cast your weapon skill will actually affect the weapon skill in itself, or it just won't work at all. So you can no longer use any skill with only 1 FP, and instead you need to actually have half the FP in order to use that skill. People have been testing it, and apparently it only affects weapons, like melee damage physical weapons, and might not affect steady chant and unfaltering prayer and stuff like that. I'd have to do more testing on that myself just to see if that is actually a thing. And unfortunately, to put this in a little bit more perspective, you can't just quick step around the swamp anymore. You can't quick step around Fahrenkeep and stuff like that. You can't quick step through really thick water anymore, which kind of sucks. Well, you can, but it's not as effective. But it also denies people from spamming that kind of stuff. Any kind of a weapon skill. I remember I actually got summoned into a guy's world, and him and his phantom were just spamming over and over again the weapon skill for Lothric's Holy Sword, and it was just like, it was unrelenting. So that will deny people from actually doing that now, which is sweet. Also, anyone charging a Great Lance and stuff like that at you will probably be kind of helpful if they get stumped when they have no FP to cast it, so that's kind of helpful as well. They also adjusted the attack cancel parameters of some curved sword attacks. So I can imagine this is attacks coming out of your rolls or before your rolls, or even just straight up canceling your swings by backstepping and whatnot. And they adjusted the attack power and skills of fist and claw weapons. And when they say that they adjusted the attack power of skills of fist and claw weapons, they really mean it. The majority of fist weapons actually got a buff, a base AR buff. So as you guys can see through these screenshot comparisons that someone was so kind to take and throw up on this MEGATHREAD, claws got buffed, demon fists got buffed, mannequin claws got buffed. Even the Dark Hand got slightly buffed as well. But the Dark Hand's a little weird. The base damage has decreased on the Dark Hand, it looks like, but the weapon art damage got buffed. And apparently the scaling off the Dark Hand for Intelligence and Faith isn't as powerful as it used to be prior to this patch. Once again, it's a little weird, but I mean, you know, I think the Dark Hand was fine the way it was. I mean, if anything, it could have earned like a proper buff so that I could make a sweet Dark Hand build. But then FromSoft was like, you know what? Nah, we don't want people looking badass with 2 Dark Hands, right? We don't want that. What are we gonna do with that? You'll also notice that fist and claw weapons parry attempts have more recovery time as well, meaning that if you're trying to spam a parry out with a fist weapon, it's not gonna be as effective and as well timed as it used to be, at least. A lot of times in PvP you see people with a fist weapon in their left hand to try and parry out moves, but apparently these fist weapons have more recovery time, meaning it's not as easy to parry things anymore with fist weapons. Now they also adjusted the skills of twin blade weapons, and the most noticeable one is the Onakiri and Ubadachi's weapon art has been buffed. It got a significant damage buff and also has hyper armor. So that's actually pretty cool, because seeing people use that in their builds, I was like, I don't know if that's actually going to work at all with the big like leaping up jump animation and whatnot, but now it's a lot more viable considering it's been buffed. You'll also notice that the Gothard's Twin Swords rolling L1 has more recovery time. Ha! Yes! I can think of a couple times where people just roll into you and spam L1 over and over again until you eventually just succumb to the stupidity that is the L1 of Gothard's Twin Swords. And now that's not nearly as viable, which is awesome. There's some balance to it. I don't care if you're rolling and hitting L1 with the Twin Swords. I don't mind that. But when it's over and over and over again, it is the most ultimate meta cheese you'll ever see in PvP. Now you guys might also note that last patch they made a couple changes to the scythes. Now with this patch they also further fixed the scythe category because apparently some of them were not penetrating shields at close distances. Now this next fix you guys are going to be super stoked about, unless you use the Estoc. If you use the Estoc, then I feel bad for you. But seriously, fuck that thing. Fuck the Estoc, okay? The next one reads adjusted stamina consumption and attack cancel parameters for rapier weapons. And that includes the Estoc. So they made it that when you equip the Estoc on your main hand, it has slower tracking and costs more stamina than it did before. There's also a difference in the roll animation when you're hitting with the Estoc, and apparently it's a little bit slower. This YouTube video that Fatty Boy put together real quick definitely demonstrates that as well. Now he also noted that if you have the Estoc in your offhand, it pretty much negates everything they've patched. It still has a heavier stamina cost, but the tracking and the frame data hasn't been changed in the offhand. And that tells me that From Software was just like, oh, well, people only ever use it in their main hand. They won't use it in their left hand. So now you know that the meta hasn't changed for offhand Estoc, or that the new meta is offhand Estoc, which is not good. So I hope that From notes that and patches that as well, because that's scary. Because now someone's going to be like, well, you don't use it in the right hand, you used it in the left hand. In the left hand, it's the best. Offhand Estoc, new meta. They also adjusted the attack collision for the washing pole, and thank God. It's about time. It's about time. And they adjusted the parameters of Fair and Hail and Bursting Fireball. Now they really changed Fair and Hail and Bursting Fireball, and I just did a video that included Fair and Hail, which is a little bit weird. But Fair and Hail has a lot more spread now. Like it's almost like a 180 degree spread for the actual spell itself. And apparently Bursting Fireball is very similar as well. So the cone of damage is definitely a lot farther, but when you bring it up close, it is still the ultimate shotgun of a sorcery slash pyromancy for both of those, to be honest. So that is probably how most people are going to use it because it has such a large spread now. You can only really use it as the shotgun of whatever caster build you're running. They also very heavily adjusted the casting speed, stamina consumption, and cancel timing of some spells. And when I say some spells, it's quite a few spells. They adjusted a lot of things with spells this patch. So you'll notice that all offensive miracles have a faster cast time in general. Now this unfortunately does not include Wrath of the Gods. But otherwise, Lightning Stake, Lightning Storm, Sunlight Spear, and every other spear has a very fast casting time now. Even faster than it was before. It's very fast, making that I Am a Cleric build that much better in PvP and in PvE. Soul Greatsword, Dark Edge, and Dark Serpent all got a significant cast speed buff of approximately 20 to 30%. Once again, you'll notice that it makes a huge difference. Other pyromancies that also have a very fast cast time now are Chaos Bad Vestiges and Boulder Heave. They're a lot faster, once again making those pyro builds even that much better now. FromSoft wants you guys to play casters, so there you go. So while it seems that these sorceries all got a pretty big increase, it's safe to assume that most pyromancies, sorceries, and offensive miracles probably all got some sort of increase in speed, and maybe even in damage or spread. It is the most noticeable with the offensive miracles and the heavier hitting pyromancies that were quite slow before. You'll also notice that spells such as Doris's Gnawing that moved slower move quite a bit faster now. I'm currently making a I am a Hexer build, so you guys can stay tuned for that. And with that, hopefully I can see some faster cast speeds with other hexes / dark magic. It's also good to note that it seems that the spell damage boosting rings have been buffed. Yeah, the spell casting rings have been buffed. That's crazy. DBert91 on this Megathread has stated that there's an increased range of approximately 12% to 25% of miracle casting, sorcery casting, and pyromancy casting with those rings. With pyromancy apparently getting the higher damage output with its witch ring and great swamp ring out of the 3 main casting types. Once again, I can imagine further testing will have to be done in order to define those details a little bit more. As you guys know, I mostly play caster builds, and that is awesome news for me and all my casting friends. They also increased the number of arrows / bolts that can be possessed, but you can hold up to 600 of each ammo in your storage box. So before the patch, you can only carry 99 of each arrow, bolt, or great arrow in your storage box, but they increased it to 600. Now, I don't know why they wouldn't just take it to 999 like most games would, but I guess 600 is a acceptable number, I guess. FromSoft was just like, 999? Nah, fucking 600, okay? 600 is acceptable. That's it. Anything beyond that's too much. It's too much power. The next one reads, during online multiplayer, during the invasion of a dark phantom, the host will no longer be separated from his area. Now, I think what that means is, let's say I get summoned as a blade, and I'm sitting, let's say, at the dilapidated bridge. Now, let's say that this dark phantom / invasion of a dark phantom summons me to Lothar Castle somewhere. I'm going to assume this means if I defeat the Dark Phantom in Lothar Castle, instead of the game putting me back where I was prior to the invasion, which would have been the dilapidated bridge, I would then end up spawning at Lothar Castle instead of where I was prior. Now, I personally never had that happen to myself before the patch, but it sounds like some players have had that happen. So that's fixed now, which is great. Another one says, during online multiplayer, a Dark Phantom can no longer be forcibly brought back in some maps. I'm going to assume what this means is if I, for example, invade a gank squad, and then I black crystal out because I'm like, fuck that, I don't want to deal with that, and then try and invade again, I might get summoned back into that gank squad's world. I'm going to assume that's what that means, or something along those lines. So I can black crystal out and then try and invade again, and hopefully not get the same group of people again and again constantly. That's what I'm going to assume on that one. And the next one reads, during online multiplayer, when the player is summoned during a boss battle, the boss will no longer become motionless, even after the player is back to his or her world. Once again, another one I'm going to guess on because I've never experienced that glitch myself, but I can only assume what would have happened is, let's say I summon a couple people in my world, for example, for a boss fight. I enter the boss fight and those guys get summoned after I already enter the fight. Now let's say those phantoms by chance leave the boss fight, then that might leave the boss that I'm fighting completely motionless and just standing there, allowing me to cheese him and completely destroy him because he's obviously not moving. Of course, I don't know if that's 100% true, but that's just what that sounds like to me. It seems the most plausible for a reason to patch something along those lines. It's also important to note that you can now change your covenant while being invaded. So this video by Irish Darkfires actually demonstrates exactly that. He summons in a red phantom and is actually able to change his covenant item in his inventory screen. So you weren't able to do that before, and I feel like that's kind of From Software's first step in trying to get even more summons for Way of the Blue for Blade of the Dark Moon to come in and take out a red phantom. Because you can get it invaded out of nowhere and you weren't able to switch your covenant. But now you can switch out to Way of the Blue and it's like boom, get some cops involved and hopefully be on your way in your playthrough. And the next note reads, the status effects below the stamina gauge will no longer be hidden when opening the top menu with HUD display set to auto. Now that one of course seems pretty self-explanatory, to be honest. Just like how the next note reads, the voice chat icon will now remain visible when the HUD display is set to auto. They also apparently fixed the display of strength level shown in the equipment menu when using two-handed weapons, which is also very helpful, to be honest, alongside some other game balance parameters that have been adjusted and several game flaws that were fixed. Now the last note is always the most vague when it just says several game flaws fixed. That's literally just FromSoft saying, fucking, we did some stuff beyond what we said here. And whatever, just whatever, man, just go, just do your thing. Also, something to note for PC players, this is the whole family share glitch to transfer over your save files onto a family share account with a new Steam account in order to get summons more often, has been patched. Apparently, if you've done this at all, you will not be able to play on that character that you have transferred the save file for. Sorry guys, I'm sorry if you lost your hours and hours of playthrough because you tried to save transfer because you couldn't wait for a Covenant fix, and I don't blame you because I too also wanted the Covenant rewards and wanted to be auto-summoned all the time. But I guess that's what happens with these type of glitches. I know it was, of course, for the better good of helping people get auto-summoned and whatnot, but it has broken a lot of save files. People are calling it pretty much a soft ban. There's also some people that are saying they've worked around it. I don't know how, because I don't play on PC, but that's a thing apparently as well. So that is all the patch notes I've been able to dig up for application 1.05 and regulation version 1.08. Now that is a lot of stuff to take in for a patch. That's a huge patch. With this patch, of course, they didn't talk about covenants or anything, so I think they just assume after the last covenant patch and server maintenance that everything has been fixed. But like I've stated before, I think that they have a bigger, better covenant fix coming in the future. Future as in like the DLC and whatnot. So once again, we can only hope and cross our fingers. So once again, guys, those were all the patch notes I was able to test and dig up so far when it came to this new update for Dark Souls 3. If you guys have any further testing you've done or any other patch notes I can add to this video, please drop them in the comments. I will reply to you, and I'll hopefully try and get that stuff upvoted for anything that should be seen. Any information when it comes to vague patch notes is very helpful. And as you guys know in the past, I really do enjoy when you guys let me know what else has changed within a patch that I may have missed in the video. But I hope this is at least a little bit helpful in clarifying what actually happened with this last update to the regulation as well as the application version. So that's all the stuff I got for today, guys. As I always say, drop a like for your boy, Goblins. I will be back here with more Dark Souls content, so stay tuned, stay subscribed. I'm currently working on an I Am a Hexer build, and I am making my way through Dark Souls 1 right now just because of Global Restart Day. Been really inspired to play Dark Souls 1 again, so it's pretty sweet. So with that being said and done, take it easy, have a general good, and I'll see you guys in the next Dark Souls video. Peace out!